Imagine that you're 58 years old, exhausted from life, and just when things couldn't get worse, the doctors hit you with the ultimate death sentence, terminal cancer. But what if, instead of fading away, you were given an extraordinary gift? One that turns you into a superhero. Sounds unreal, right? Well, that's exactly what happens in Inuyashiki. In today's recap, I'll take you through this jaw-dropping story of a man's transformation from powerless to unstoppable. Stick around for the story, you don't want to miss this one. Inuyashiki is a 58-year-old man who has just relocated with his family into a house in Tokyo, hoping to give them a better life. But despite his efforts, he remains invisible to them. His wife and children treat him with disdain at home, and this makes him feel unimportant. Every morning, he endures a suffocating subway commute, only to be humiliated at work by his boss. One evening on his way home, he witnesses a robbery. He hesitates to intervene and eventually he is overtaken by fear and he turns to leave. Unknown to him, his daughter, Mari, had seen everything. Disgusted by his inaction, she tells him that she never expected much from him and then walks away. Consumed by shame, Inuyashiki returns and becomes lost in thought. Suddenly, a stray dog approaches him and he finds a note on its collar revealing its name, Hanako. The note pleads for someone to care for her. Before he can react, his wife sees the dog and immediately orders him to get rid of it. The next day, Inuyashiki goes for a routine checkup but receives devastating news that he has terminal cancer and that he has 3 months to live. Stunned, he tries to call his family, but they all ignore him. Even when they returned home that evening and he tried to tell them, no one was interested. Instead, they complain about inconveniences, and Mari once again demands he get rid of Hanako. Heartbroken, Inuyashiki takes Hanako far from home and releases her. But as he turns to leave, the dog follows. So, he runs away, hoping the dog will turn back. When he finally stops at a park, he sees Hanako patiently waiting for him. Overcome with guilt, he realizes she's the only one who truly cares for him. So, he apologizes to the dog. Then as he raises his head, he notices a young boy sitting nearby in the park. Suddenly, an intense flash of light engulfs the area. Hanako immediately runs away just before a massive explosion takes place. The shockwave throws Inuyashiki backward, leaving him dazed. As he struggles to comprehend what just happened, he sees strange, inhuman figures appearing around him with their forms not clearly visible in the blinding light. When he wakes up in the morning, Inuyashiki is shocked to realize that he had slept in the park and also he can now see perfectly without his glasses. Confused but relieved, he returns home with Hanako. At home, he carries on with his morning routine. During breakfast, he eats miso soup, but an unquenchable thirst suddenly overtakes him. He quickly reaches for the tap to gulp water, but it does nothing to satisfy him. Then excusing himself, he walks into the bedroom and notices thick smoke coming out of his hands. Alarmed, he quickly removes his shirt, only to witness something completely unnatural. His right arm suddenly transforms into a mechanical weapon. Before he can process what's happening, the weapon discharges all the soup he had eaten just minutes ago. Now very much afraid, he touches his face, feeling an unusual texture around his neck. As he presses on it, his face and ears detach from his head and reveal a mechanical core inside. When he stands to look at his reflection in the mirror, he is horrified. His body is no longer human. As panic sets in, his arms transform into weapons, and he struggles to regain control. In the meantime, Hanako begins barking frantically. Hearing the commotion, Marie calls out from the hallway. Just as she reaches the door, Inuyashiki's body miraculously returns to normal. With no trace of his transformation, he breathes a sigh of relief as he reassures his wife that everything was fine. Meanwhile, Hiro, a high school student in the same class as Mari, decides to visit his best friend, Chako. A few days earlier, Chako had stopped attending school due to the relentless bullying he had suffered. As they talk, Hiro takes him to the balcony and points at a bird flying nearby. Then pointing his finger like a gun, he fires. Suddenly, the bird explodes, leaving Chako in shock. Hiro was actually the boy that was at the park with Inuyashiki the night of the strange explosion. Unable to comprehend what just happened, Chako follows Hiro to the garage, where his friend shows him more of his newfound abilities. Using his hands, he controls the parked cars to crash into each other. When Chako was still confused, Hiro finally revealed the full extent of his power as he removed his shirt, revealing that his entire body can transform into a weapon. He declares himself a superhero, believing that he is no longer human. Meanwhile, Inuyashiki is yet to uncover the true nature of his new abilities. Instead, he believes that he has become a monster and he continues to struggle to make sense of his transformation. That morning, his troubles worsen when he is unexpectedly fired from his job. With no way to pay his mortgage, his greatest fear becomes a reality. His family's well-being is now at risk. As he drags himself back home, he spots an injured pigeon lying on the ground. As he picks it up, something incredible happens. He can see exactly what is wrong with the bird, as if his mind is diagnosing its injuries in real time. Within seconds, the pigeon is completely healed and flies away, leaving Inuyashiki stunned. He now realizes that whatever happened to him may not be a curse after all. Soon, Inuyashiki discovers a strange new ability that he now possesses. He suddenly begins hearing the desperate cries of a mother pleading with a doctor to save her child. Though the voices are clear, they seem to come from a nearby hospital. Without hesitation, he rushes there. Upon arrival, he sees a distressed mother speaking with a doctor about her unconscious son, who is entirely dependent on life support. Inuyashiki immediately sneaks into the room and uses his newfound powers to swiftly analyze the cause of the illness. Then, he places his hands on the boy's head, initiating the healing process. Within moments, the child's eyes open for the first time in a long while. Just then, his mother enters the room and she is shocked to see a stranger beside her son. Before she can react, she realizes that her child is now conscious. The medical staff is left in utter disbelief. Overwhelmed with joy, Inuyashiki quietly leaves the hospital, feeling a sense of fulfillment he hasn't experienced in years. The next day, Chako returns to school, only to be confronted by Tekken, a notorious bully who had tormented him before. As Tekken tries to intimidate him, Hiro intervenes. When the bully tries to grab Hiro's shirt, Hiro grips his arm with crushing force, forcing him to his knees. He then demands that Tekken return Chako's stolen money. When Tekken claims he doesn't have the full amount, Hiro threatens him with his finger, just like he did with the bird. However, Chako quickly steps in, knowing how dangerous this could turn out to be. Despite his hatred for Tekken, he doesn't want Hiro to become a murderer. So, without a word, Hiro walks away. As he leaves, a classmate, Cheyenne, follows him, and when she finally summons her courage, she confesses her feelings for Hiro. To her surprise, Hiro smiles and sincerely thanks her for sharing her emotions with him. As he walks home, Hiro receives a call from his mother. She asks him to visit his father, who is feeling too well and wants to see him. Although Hiro resents the man for abandoning him and his mother to start another family, he decides to go. When he arrives, his father greets him and hands over the monthly child support to him. During dinner, Hiro is warmly received by his stepmother and half-siblings. While he finds them likable, his resentment toward his father remains. As they enjoy dessert, a dark impulse seizes Hiro with the urge to kill his father. But as he watches his siblings laugh, unaware of the underlying tension, he suppresses the thought and leaves the house. As he walks home, still very much consumed by anger, Hiro walks through the neighborhood and enters an unsuspecting home. Without hesitation, he shoots the man inside, then mercilessly kills his wife. Inuyashiki, who has been using his abilities to heal children at a hospital, suddenly hears the desperate screams of a young girl. Without hesitation, he rushes towards the source of the cries, only to arrive at a house where he finds the lifeless body of a young woman on the floor. Desperate to try to heal her, Inuyashiki uses his powers, but he discovers that it has its limits. They do not allow him to bring back the dead. As he goes inside the house, he finds that the girl's parents also lay dead on the floor. He then finds Hiro standing right in the middle of the massacre. When Hiro turned, he saw Inuyashiki, and to ensure that there were no witnesses, Hiro raised his finger and then shot him, with force sending him flying. Assuming he is dead like the others and with all evidence erased, Hiro leaves the scene. However, Inuyashiki soon regains consciousness and immediately runs out to find Hiro. But by the time he arrives, Hiro is already gone, having vanished without a trace. The next day, the news is filled with reports of the horrific crime that took place in Shofu City, where an entire family was brutally murdered. Strangely, despite police confirming that the victims were shot, no bullet traces were found. Meanwhile, Hiro meets again with his friend Choko, who confronts him about the massacre. Without hesitation, Hiro confesses, declaring that he is no longer human but something greater, a god. Despite this terrifying revelation, he reassures Choko that he will always protect him. However, his words do not bring comfort. Instead, Choko is overcome with fear and disappointment, and he eventually ends up telling Hiro to stay away from him. Back home that evening, Hiro's mother delivers devastating news. She has been diagnosed with cancer and only has a short time left to live. Shocked and heartbroken, Hiro holds her, refusing to accept her fate. He vows that he will not let her die, believing she has done nothing to deserve such suffering. That night, Inuyashiki, who was burdened by his own failures, hears Choko's desperate plea for divine intervention. Choko prays for someone to stop Hiro before he can kill again. Moved by the desperate pleas, Inuyashiki takes Hanako and flies to the park where Choko was. Determined to use his newfound abilities for good, he explains to Choko how he and Hiro gained their superhuman powers. Both had been at the park that night during the mysterious explosion that transformed them into something beyond human. Desperate for a way to stop Hiro, Choko asks if Inuyashiki has any weaknesses that could be exploited. The old man reveals that his only vulnerability so far has been miso soup, which hadn't gone well with his body. From that moment on, Choko commits himself to training Inuyashiki, teaching him everything he has observed about Hiro's abilities. Their first lesson was mastering the ability to fire shots with the fingers. After several failed attempts, Inuyashiki slowly starts to get the hang of it. Exhausted from the training, Inuyashiki goes to get some water, desperate to quench his thirst. However, moments after drinking, his body violently rejects the liquid. Chako, observing the incident, examines the label and realizes it was an isotonic sports drink containing sodium. Drawing a connection to miso soup Inuyashiki had earlier, which also contains salt, Chako concludes that Inuyashiki's body is incapable of digesting sodium. Meanwhile, Hiro, still grappling with the news of his mother's illness, accompanies her to a doctor's appointment. To their astonishment, the physician delivers an exciting news: every malignant cell in her body has vanished, and she is now completely cured. The two were overjoyed as Hiro walks home with his mother. However, their relief is short-lived. A group of police officers suddenly intercepts them, intending to question Hiro regarding the murder of the family in Shofu City. Realizing the danger, Hiro makes the decision to escape. The officers followed him, and as they finally had him cornered, Hiro opened fire and eliminated 3 officers in the process. Despite being hunted by a highly trained task force, he manages to disappear into the city. Hours later, news broadcasts across the country warn the public about Hiro, who is now considered a fugitive. The next day, after class, Shine sees Hiro in a deserted part of the city and she invites him to her home. She assures him that the apartment is safe since only she and her elderly grandmother live there. With nowhere else to go, Hiro accepts her offer. Elsewhere, Mari notices Chako walking with her father at the train station. Curious about their relationship, she confronts Chako, who quickly fabricates a story about meeting him through an online game. Back at Shine's apartment, Hiro watches the news and discovers that his actions have had devastating consequences for his mother. Since his escape, several news reporters have swarmed her home, blaming her for his crimes and hurling cruel accusations. The constant harassment was unbearable, and unable to cope with the pressure, his mother had taken her own life. After realizing that the only person he truly loved is gone, Hiro desperately searches the internet, scanning through forums and discussions related to the incident. Eventually, he stumbles upon a chat where users were openly discussing the events. One comment catches his attention. A young man boasts about leaking Hiro's mother's address to the press. But what disturbs Hiro even more is the overwhelming wave of congratulatory messages, praising the act as if it were an achievement. Consumed by rage, Hiro makes a chilling decision. Using his advanced hacking abilities, he infiltrates the culprit's computer. The boy, initially thrilled to see the infamous fugitive, did not grasp the imminent danger he was in. Within seconds, Hiro raises his finger and fires through the screen and then shoots more times, ensuring that he is dead. But Hiro doesn't stop there. One by one, Hiro methodically tracks down every user in the chat who encouraged the leak. No one is spared. The unprecedented massacre sends shockwaves through Tokyo, leaving the authorities scrambling as fear grips the city. The police are at a loss, unable to comprehend the force they are dealing with. That night, Shine wakes up to find Hiro standing by the sink, exhausted from the numerous attacks he had carried out. As she approaches him, Hiro makes a shocking confession telling her that he was responsible for the mass killing in Shofu City. Unable to believe it, she stares at him, but Hiro calmly proves his claim by showing her his robotic arm. To further convince her, he takes her flying above the city. As they drift through the night sky, Shine is overwhelmed with emotion and she cries, pleading with him to understand the weight of his actions. Each person he killed had a life, dreams, and loved ones, but the future has now been stolen from them. Despite the horror, she refuses to leave his side. Touched by her devotion, Hiro promises never to abandon her. Days later, as Shine rises for a glass of water in the night, their world shattered when she suddenly found armed agents in the house. Chaos erupts as she screams for Hiro to run, but he refuses. Instead, he throws himself over her, shielding her from the relentless barrage of bullets. Though he was hit multiple times, he eventually retaliates with devastating force, wiping out every agent in sight. But when the dust settles, he turns to find a horrifying sight. Shine's grandmother lies lifeless. And then his worst fear is realized. Shine is dead too. With nothing left to stay hidden for, Hiro decides to leave. His heart was totally consumed by an even deep thirst for vengeance. The following day, Inuyashiki warns his family to remain inside and avoid all electronic screens. Hiro has adopted a terrifying new method of attack as he now uses digital broadcasts to strike his victims. However, his family ignores the warning and goes out for their daily routines. Hours later, Hiro hijacks the city's massive digital billboards and broadcasts his own message. He announces to the public that the police had raided a home and slaughtered an elderly woman and a high school student. He declares this as a declaration of war by the forces and he vows to retaliate. He then concludes by stating that his war against Japan will only end when everyone is dead. Then suddenly, he raises his finger to the screen and begins executing people on the streets remotely, showcasing the extent of his devastating powers. Meanwhile, Inuyashiki, who is training with Chako, hears the distant screams of the civilians and rushes to intervene. As Hiro continues his shooting, a live news report starts monitoring the disaster. During the broadcast, the journalist suddenly gets a call from Hiro, and when he picks it up, he is suddenly shot in the head, and this sends the city into further panic. Elsewhere, Mari and her classmates are on a field trip when they receive news of the massacre. Not knowing the danger, they take out their phones to follow the unfolding events, only to become Hiro's next victims. Amidst the massive chaos, Inuyashiki uses his powers to seize control of the digital screens, broadcasting a desperate plea from Chako, urging people to turn off their devices and stay away from all screens. With this counterattack, the battle between Hiro and Inuyashiki escalates into a full-scale digital war, with several innocent lives hanging in the balance. Hiro immediately changes tactics and launches a barrage of missiles to destroy the city's massive screens, using the chaos as cover to bomb several buildings in his path. One of these buildings was where Mari is. As Hiro continues his rampage, Inuyashiki suddenly appears behind him, pleading with him to stop. He reveals that on the night Hiro was hit by the bomb, he too was there and underwent the same transformation. However, Hiro remains unwavering in his mission to annihilate the country. Seeing no other option, Inuyashiki attacks, triggering a critical aerial battle. Missiles rain down as Hiro relentlessly pursues Inuyashiki through the city. As they continue to battle, Inuyashiki suddenly hears his daughter's desperate cries for help. But as he moves to rescue her, Hiro intercepts him, slamming the old man into the side of a building. The impact sends Inuyashiki crashing into a news helicopter covering the story. Before anyone can react, Hiro arrives and throws the reporter and cameraman from the aircraft. Inuyashiki manages to save one of them, but before he can act further, Hiro shoots the pilot in the head. The helicopter immediately goes out of control and heads for a direct collision with a nearby building. With no time to think, Inuyashiki grabs the remaining journalist and escapes just as the aircraft crashes into the structure. But his efforts are in vain because minutes later, Hiro approaches and kills the survivor. He then turns his attention back to Inuyashiki, attempting to convince him to join forces with him. As Hiro tries to hydrate himself, Inuyashiki sees an opportunity. He immediately destroys the bottle in Hiro's hand and in turn tries to drink from his own bottle. Instead, Hiro attacks and takes the bottle from him, not knowing that it is filled with isotonic liquid. So he drinks the water and then prepares to finish off Inuyashiki. However, his system begins to malfunction, and just as he is about to deliver the finishing blow, his internal mechanisms fail completely and his body begins to self-destruct. Realizing he has been tricked, Hiro struggles to regain control, but it is too late. Inuyashiki launches his missiles, ensuring Hiro falls to his death with the explosions. With the battle finally over, Inuyashiki rushes back to find his daughter, Mari. But he is met with a devastating sight. Mari has already succumbed to her injuries. Desperate to save her, he immediately administers CPR with his robotic systems working in overdrive. After several agonizing moments, Mari finally gasps back to life. Wasting no time, Inuyashiki channels his power to fully heal her, embracing her in overwhelming relief. But their moment of reunion is cut short. Out of nowhere, Hiro returns, completely restored as though nothing has happened to him. He immediately kills every other survivor in sight. Mari is his last target. Just as he is about to pull the trigger, Inuyashiki intervenes, pushing Hiro's arm away. But it's too late as Mari is already hit by the shot. As she fights for her life, Inuyashiki desperately tries to reach her, but Hiro ruthlessly beats him down, showing no mercy. Weakened and unable to fight back, Inuyashiki's robotic head suddenly opens, revealing his true form to Mari. Despite the shock of seeing what her father really is, Mari can only watch in horror as Hiro continues to humiliate him. Realizing that Inuyashiki is indestructible, Hiro shifts his focus back to Mari. He seizes her and drags her to the edge of the skyscraper. Then, without hesitation, he throws her off. As Mari falls toward the ground, something inside Inuyashiki ignites. His body surges with an overwhelming power, supercharging his systems to their limit. In an instant, he rockets toward Hiro and, with a single devastating strike, obliterates him completely. Then, without pausing, he dives after Mari, barely catching her before she hits the pavement. In the days that follow, the media confirms Hiro's death, but his body is never recovered, only shattered remains are found at the scene. Life seemingly returns to normal for Inuyashiki, though things are different now. Mari, having seen the truth, knows her father's secret. Meanwhile, in the final moments of the film, Hiro makes one last visit to Chako's house. Despite the fear in his eyes, Chako is relieved to see his old friend alive. As they prepare to play one last game together, Chako turns as if to speak, but finds that Hiro has vanished. The screen fades to black, leaving an unanswered question. What happens next? And that wraps up the incredible story of Inuyashiki. If you love this recap, don't just stop here. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our next video. We've got more epic movie recaps coming your way. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.